The N54 engine is legendary in the performance world for making huge power with aftermarket tunes and mods, and in this video I'm going to break them all down so you understand what you need to max out the stock turbos. A lot of people have 500 horsepower in their heads as a goal with this platform, and it's definitely doable with stock turbos, but you're going to need exotic fuel and you'll seriously be pushing the limits. I think 450 is a more realistic number, and that's the one I'm going to be shooting for with my build. So we're going to break down these mods into two categories. One, the mods that actually make more horsepower, and two, the mods that support your ability to reliably maintain that power over time. Okay, let's start with the power mod. The first one is the most obvious, a tune. You have three major options when it comes to tunes on the N54 platform: JB4, MHD, and Cobb access port. The JB4 is a physical hardware device that plugs in between the engine sensors and the engine computer, which is known as the DME. It essentially tricks the engine into making more boost than it thinks it is. The nice thing about JB4 is you can change what tune you're running on the fly through the steering wheel controls, and the JB4 has exceptional safety mechanisms built in. MHD, on the other hand, is an actual software tune that you upload into the DME via the OBD2 port. You can pick from several different off-the-shelf maps. Overall, MHD is significantly cheaper to get started with than JB4, but it does add up as you purchase more maps. It's worth noting that you don't have to pick one or the other. You can actually run both JB4 and a backend MHD flash, which is provided for free from the makers of JB4, and that way you get the best of both worlds. Now, Cobb access port is similar to MHD in that it's a software tune. However, it is the most expensive of the three by far, and it's not as popular as it once was. Today, it's all about JB4 versus MHD. If you're in California, it's also worth noting that Cobb is legal to run on the streets because it has a California Air Resources Board executive order. The only mods that are legal in California are the ones with a CARB EO, and as far as I know, only the front mount intercoolers from several of the popular brands actually have those. Whichever tune you choose, expect to gain anywhere from 60 to 80 horsepower with additional gains as you add more and more upgraded parts. Speaking of which, the next mod that most people choose to do is DCIs, or dual cone intakes, because it's one of the easiest mods to do. These are larger intake filters that let your car breathe a little better, and they do gain you about 10 horsepower. Now, that doesn't sound like much, but trust me, it all adds up. In fact, you're gonna see a theme with all of the mods that actually add horsepower. In some way, each one allows your engine to breathe more air. The more air you have, the more fuel you can burn and the more power you can make. It's that simple. So the next way to gain more horsepower is to replace the restrictive stock downpipes with catless or high flow catted downpipes. The catless downpipes are inexpensive and pretty easy to install, and you can expect gains of 20 to 25 horsepower. The catted versions are much more expensive, but they're good for places where you still have to pass a smog check, and you can still do that even with aftermarket parts. Hint, not California. Now, at this point, you're making a lot more power, so the next best mod to make is replacing your stock plastic charge pipe with an aluminum one. The stock pipe has a weak point, and it's been known to blow apart even under factory boost levels. Even though there are no direct horsepower gains to be made from this mod, it's a smart thing to do so that you're not walking home someday after an accident. There are two options when it comes to this mod. You can choose one that keeps your stock diverter valves, or one that replaces those with a blow-off valve, which vents the excess charge pressure to atmosphere. That's where you get that characteristic psh sound when you let off the throttle. Now, as I said before, there are no direct horsepower gains to be had from this mod, but that may not be exactly true. You see, at higher boost levels, the stock diverter valves have been known to leak boost, thus robbing you of some horsepower. So by going with a blow-off valve, you're actually giving your engine the ability to make all the boost that it's capable of. That's why I call it a supporting mod. Speaking of that, the next supporting mod to do is the front mount intercooler, or FMIC. The stock intercooler isn't super efficient at the higher boost levels you're now making, and after you do a few pulls, you'll start to get heat soak. It'll no longer cool the charge air efficiently. Warm air is less dense, less air, less fuel, less power. You've got two sizes of FMIC to choose from, a 5-inch and a 7.5-inch. For the most part, if you're sticking with the stock turbos, you don't need a 7.5 and you should stick with the 5-inch. The jury is out on whether an upgraded FMIC will add more power, but one thing's for sure, it definitely helps you maintain the big power you're now making more consistently. You won't have heat soak issues, so I consider it a supporting mod, but it might add a little bit of power. Now at this point, you have reached that coveted stage called full bolt-on, which is something of a misnomer because you're still missing one of the most important mods you can make. Of course, I'm talking about replacing the stock inlets with high-flow silicone ones. this can gain you an extra 30 horsepower. Most people overlook this mod because it's very difficult to remove the rear inlet since it's bolted to the engine and you have to reach around the back between the firewall with a tool and unscrew it by hand. It's definitely worth it though. I think people also skip this mod because it used to be something you did when you upgraded your turbos. The stock turbos have a 1.75 inch inlet and the aftermarket ones have a 2-inch. And most of the inlets for sale are 2-inch. So if you're keeping your stock turbos, make sure you get the inlets that have 1.75 openings at the turbo end. That way they'll fit on the stock turbos. Guys, I'll be making all of these mods in upcoming videos, so definitely stay tuned for those DIYs. After each power adding mod, meaning tune, DCI, downpipes, and inlets, I'm gonna be giving you my honest opinion on how different they make the car feel. I really wish I could test everything on the dyno before and after, but that would be pretty expensive. Maybe I'll do one dyno day at the end after I've got everything added. All right, let's add things up. A stock 335 makes about 265 horsepower to the wheels in the real world. Add just the JB4 on map 1 with 91 octane gas and you're making about 345. DCIs plus downpipes should get you to 380. Inlets should get you to about 410. Now, even at this point, you have not completely maxed out the stock turbos. One of the easiest mods you can do next is just increase the octane in your fuel. If you have access to 93 octane, that'll give you more power at every combination of bolt-ons. If you have access to E85 fuel, that's even better. You can start mixing that in with your regular pump fuel. All normal pump gas is E10. It has 10% ethanol in it. By mixing it with E85, you can create custom blends of E30 or E50 or just full E85. But be warned, if you go much past E30, you'll need to upgrade your stock fuel pump because higher blends of ethanol require much higher fuel flow rates. There are various stages of upgraded fuel pumps you can switch to depending on how far you want to go, but if you're sticking with stock turbos, a stage 1 pump should be just fine. Another supporting mod you might need to do somewhere along the way is change your stock Bosch spark plugs for 1 or 2-step Kohler NGK plugs. It's inevitable that you're going to start getting misfires as you climb the horsepower mountain, and some people find that these Kohler plugs do help. Lastly, the final mod you can do to gain power would be to add methanol injection. This is kind of like running E85 all the time without the need for an upgraded fuel pump, so it's definitely another way to go, and the JB4 excels at running meth, but then again, that's another exotic fuel that you need to source. Anyway, if you get to this point and you still want more, your next step is to upgrade your turbos and get a custom tune, but that's a little bit beyond my plans for now. Guys, I'm definitely going to enjoy making these DIYs for all these mods, and I'm excited for you to see them, so stay tuned. If you enjoyed this video, give me a thumbs up, subscribe if you want to see more. I'm the 50s Kid. Thanks a lot for watching.